of your business, and God bless.
John Deere Tractor. Free 550 and 92.9 WAME.
Hello, I'm Johnny.
Welcome to Racing Roots with Ham.
If you don't know our host, David Ham, he's a 25-year NASCAR veteran, engine builder, and jackman.
Live every Monday evening, we have a new guest
From the racing world with their stories, their paths,
their racing roots.
Now here's our host, David Ham.
And good evening, everyone. Welcome to Racing Roots with Ham. And we're going to have a action-packed show from the Darlington Raceway. Actually, we're not broadcasting live from Darlington Raceway. That's too bad, though. We could have at some point. Maybe we will one of these days. But I've got Christian in here, Christian Wilson, that is. Hey there, Christian.
Hey, good evening, everybody.
And I got Mr. Bryson.
How we doing, buddy? Good to be back.
Look at that. I got that mic on just like
There
that.
you go. Thanks for that.
And then, of course, my lovely wife, Tracy. Last but not least, of course. Wifey, yes. See, if you had the headphones on, you'd be able to understand what I'm saying.
I do understand what you're saying.
I know. I'm kidding. I got a little bit rushed.
Extra large.
At the last minute. That's extra girthy to you. Thank you very much. So she ordered me this shirt from China. And
Everything comes from China.
Well, yeah, it does. But whenever you say extra large to the China people, they tend to run a little bit smaller.
Okay, so I ordered stuff for myself in my size, and it fit.
Yes.
So I think that's a personal issue.
I do have a question though, because a lot of our T-shirts do come from China. Is this are you ordering the T-shirt from a Chinese company, or is this something that's like an American company that's just distributed out of China? Because I would think then it would be pretty.
This is actually from China.
Oh, okay.
We'll let the cat out of the bag.
No, don't tell.
Okay, it's top secret. Okay, yeah. We do basically the stores and all. They get stuff. Okay.
Yeah.
That a lot cheaper from China. Like everything else. So, yeah, that's the
He
deal.
just needs to try it on.
Yeah.
He didn't try it on.
That would help. I think if you try it on, you may be able to figure it out.
Yes.
But you never know. I feel like every T-shirt that I have probably fits me a little differently. So I'm picky about T-shirts and stuff. You know.
Yeah. That's the way it
David
goes.
used to buy 2 extra large.
Yeah, many years ago.
All baggy.
When I was, well, yeah.
You were heavier.
I was heavier. I had 2 extra. I know it's hard to believe. It's funny. No.
You were heavier?
That I was heavier.
You're just buffed up.
That's right. I'm just buffed up.
Yeah,
He just filled out.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I hope everybody had a happy Mother's Day.
Yep.
Did you have a happy Mother's Day, Christian?
Did your mother have a happy Mother's Day?
She did. Yeah, she got to go on a girls trip with like my sister and then her mother, so they spent the weekend together.
Oh, that's cool.
Yep.
Very good. Very good.
I was actually thinking about that for Mom.
Oh, a weekend trip
For the girls.
for the girls. Okay. Okay, go for it.
Since my husband doesn't want to go anywhere with me.
Oh, here we go.
He's pushing you away, isn't he?
She texted me.
She didn't pick up on that.
Oh, she texted me this morning and said, "Hey there." She said that we need to go on a mountain trip or something like that.
I did not say that exactly.
Well,
what I said was I was feeling a little blue. I think that what I need is to spend some time with you, and we could go to the mountains for the weekend.
Yeah.
There you go.
Fair point.
And so I got so stressed that I ended up having a headache.
Yeah, he did. I was like, forget it.
Well, Wilkes County is in the mountains this weekend, so maybe
That's a good point.
Yeah.
There you go.
Take
Me
a
and
little trip to
Bryson
the
will go.
racetrack.
Me
Yeah.
and Bryson will go.
I'll take you to the racetrack.
Thank
Tracy.
you.
Yeah.
Oh.
At least somebody loves me.
All right. So speaking of racetrack, is that coming up next weekend?
It's this
Yeah.
week. This
week.
The
This week.
North Wilkesboro All-Star Race Weekend, and they have the late model racing on Tuesday and Wednesday, and then I think they have the Cup practice qualifying, stuff like that.
Yeah.
I don't know if they have qualifying, but I know they have heat races Friday or Saturday.
Yeah, so it's pretty cool. It's kind of old school, honestly, the way that they're doing it. But the cool thing is tomorrow and Wednesday are the late model races. So the ASA series is coming in, and then everybody knows the Cars Tour, which is now co-owned by Dale Jr., Jeff Burton, Kevin Harvick, and Justin Marks. They're coming in on Wednesday, and it's pretty cool because you got a lot of Cup guys. I know Chase Elliott is running in the ASA series. Eric Jones, Brad Keselowski, Dale Jr. is coming back to race a late model with the Cars Tour, and then I believe Kevin Harvick is getting in one of Rodney Childers' cars. So that's pretty cool to have these guys like kind of coming back to their racing roots, right? And running where they started.
I have an opinion on this. Okay.
All right.
I think they should have a Legends race again where those drivers could race in the stock cars, and late model drivers that run locally could have more of a chance of being in the race. That's just my personal opinion. Like, some of the guys you may see at Hickory, they could have a chance to run the Wilkesboro race. A lot of those guys that had a chance to be in the Cars Tour race aren't, because the former Cup drivers are racing in it. So my theory, my personal opinion, why not have the Legends race like they did in the 90s or the 2000s? Yeah. I think that would be pretty cool to see again.
Well, that's kind of cool that, I mean, that's kind of a cool idea. I think we have so many guys that are like recently retired that we consider legends in the sport. I mean, look at like Jeff Gordon, Dale Jr., Tony Stewart. It would be really cool to, even if it was like a 15, 20 car field, to have some sort of race where they come back. But honestly, I mean, you've probably got, I think there's probably 6 or 7 Cup drivers that are running the late model races, and that's spread out between 2 separate races. So I don't know that really takes away, because I think they're accepting like a 32 car field, which for late models is quite a few. So, and I know a couple of guys that we see up at Hickory are making the trip up there and trying to get in, because the Cars Tour typically has some open spots. Yeah. I'm not as familiar with the ASA series, but I know that several of the current Cup drivers are running in that series. So me personally, I don't think it's extreme yet, but I mean it could get to that point one day where, like, guys retire from Cup and then they run late models all the time, and then maybe it takes away a little bit from these guys. But I mean, it's not something they're doing every week. So
that's a good opinion too, and I definitely see your point there.
Yeah. It's all good, though. I mean, I'm just excited that we're racing at Wilkesboro regardless.
Yeah, exactly.
I think that's crazy. Like a year ago today, I mean, we were talking about, what would have been going on in August, which was pretty cool to begin with. And now we're talking about a Cup race that we've learned that's going to be there, and it's actually happening, which is just incredible. Great for the people of Wilkes County that to have that place back. I know it means a lot to their economy, too, as well. So, man, May is the best month of racing.
For real.
I mean, it's not, we don't have our biggest races in May. Like the Daytona 500 is obviously in February, but you look at May, I mean, we go to Darlington to the throwback weekend. We had good racing last week at Kansas. Then you go to the Coke 600 is this month. We're going back to North Wilkesboro. And then you look at things like the Indy 500 is this month. Same day as the Coke 600. So I don't know, man. It's for me, May is, and it's a good time too, because last year we I guess the 3 of us were all down there, but there's a lot of events that go on at different places down towards the Charlotte area with different legends and drivers of the sport, people, because like it's a home race for all these guys, so everybody's in town, and there's a lot of cool stuff going on. So great time to. Great, exciting time. My favorite time of the year.
Same. They have a lot of fan stuff too. Week of the 600. So a lot of the teams open up their shops, and they have driver autograph sessions, and fans get to come and look around. Like last year, I went to the one at Junior Motorsports, and it was so crowded. I got there early in the morning, and it was like maybe 7 a.m. Things started at like 9. There was already hundreds of people lined up ready to be there. I mean, it was insane.
Well, you guys were there too, right? You guys
I would say there was they were lined up. It's probably 1,000 people.
Wow.
And
on a Thursday, right? On a random Thursday in May. I mean, who would have think you would draw that kind of crowd on a Thursday, middle of the week?
Yeah, we went in to help Will Cronkite that evening.
Yeah, it was funny. We walked up and saw the line. We saw the line, and I told David, I said, "Come on, let's just go straight."
Yeah, just
act
keep
like
walking.
we own the place. And we did. We walked
Dale
straight
Jr.
in.
might argue with that.
Well, that's what you have to do sometimes.
Well, that's because we were helping Will.
Yeah,
so
no. That's
we didn't need to wait in line because we didn't need to get bands.
Yeah, I was getting people to come over there and say, I was showing them the picture of Will with Dale Earnhardt, and I was saying, here, see this guy right here in this picture? That's him over there. He provided the first competitive race car for Dale Earnhardt Sr. in 1978.
He sold a couple books that day too.
Oh yeah,
He did.
more than a couple. But yeah, he
sure.
was selling them.
Well, I know they're in Dale Jr.'s shop. The last time I was in there, he
Yeah.
had several up on the shelf there for sale. So pretty cool.
And then we had the event over at the Morrison's Museum. Is that right? Morrison's
Yeah, I
Museum.
think.
Yeah, they had the Morrison motor car. They had an event
Yeah,
there.
yeah.
Did
Right
we go
next
to
to the
that?
racetrack.
Me and I went. Bryson went.
Yeah.
And
That's
you
one-
did
I didn't
not.
think I did.
And that's where we met Christian for the first time, actually, I believe.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Okay.
They
Yeah,
got all
it's
the that's the one that they have all the different cars, but they say there's signs everywhere that says everything's for sale because they're constantly changing out their inventory. So it's pretty cool. They got a lot of country music stuff in the back too, where those the autograph sessions were going on. But yeah,
Okay.
had Bobby Allison was there, Will was there as well, Cronkite, and
Jerry
a lot of-
Cook.
yeah,
Jerry
Jerry
Nadeau.
Bill Blair.
Cook, yeah.
And
And that was right next to the racetrack. Just, I mean, you could see the racetrack from there. So pretty cool.
Yep.
Yeah.
The Joy Flock, or no, it was actually the Flock sisters, I believe.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And so a bunch of different people. And what else? So y'all went to Darlington this weekend.
Yep.
Yeah.
Christian and Bryson. Y'all didn't go together, right?
No.
No. So tell them about what you were doing, because you had some pretty cool stuff going
I
on.
was doing photography on Sunday. I wasn't there for Friday's truck race or Saturday's Xfinity race, but I was there for the Cup Series race on Sunday. It's just the first event that I've done. First NASCAR Cup Series event that I've done where I was part of the media. So it was a really cool experience, and I'm very thankful to be able to go and be able to get some great shots, and it was just so cool. I've never been to a NASCAR race at Darlington before, and it was quite the experience. But I saw Bryson there. We stood in turn one for most of the race, like stage one, stage two. I was there for a little while, and then I ended up moving towards turn four. But I saw you there around sort of like the part of the end of the first stage, and then
Yeah.
How long did you stay there? Because I ended up moving to get some more photographs further on down the track.
So when the race started, we watched the start from Kevin Harvick's pit box. Right next to it, there was an opening. And we kind of stood there and watched a couple of laps as they came by and, at speed for the first time, which was pretty cool. I will say probably the coolest part about standing there was before the race, they take a trip down pit road to check their speeds, right? And
Yeah.
I thought about you, Ham, because these guys, you see it on TV and you see them going around at the track at 200 miles an hour, and then they come to the pits and they look like they're crawling. Dude, no way.
They were
Them
not
things
crawling.
are flying, dude. I mean, I'm telling you what, there's no way that I could just jump off that wall without any, I don't know how you guys do it. Especially, did you ever jack a car when there was no pit road speed?
Yeah, I did during the All-Star qualifying. We would
Gosh.
have those there.
Yeah. Golly, man. But I was just thinking, I mean, these guys they're probably only going like, 45, 50
or
miles an
60.
hour?
I think it's speed limit's 50 or 60 on pit road.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But man, watching them do his stop, it was crazy because these guys are just jumping out there. I mean, and on TV it looks like nothing, but when you're there, it's crazy. But anyways, we stayed right there, and then we went to turn one up on that tower. I guess it's a sort of a viewing deck for the media there. And
Yeah, it's a hot spot. A
yeah.
lot of people were surrounding us.
yeah,
there.
but it was a good view. Had a good view of the front stretch going into 1 and 2, and then onto the back stretch. So we actually stayed the whole race. My dad and I, we stayed there and had a lot of action there towards the end, but we'll get to that later. But yeah, that's where we hung out. So, and that's where we saw Christian and taking some cool pictures, and
right.
all kinds of good stuff.
I'm gonna try to play that video.
Yeah.
If y'all want to listen to it, well, actually, I got to change the sound setting on this thing first. But yeah.
Yeah, our Stock Car Classics group was there
if it'll
too.
work.
They were track. That's where they had the fan experience, and they had the vintage cars on display. So that's where the video that you have is from. It's from where they had the midway.
Do I need an audio on that, or is it just?
You don't have to have audio on
All right,
it.
we'll just talk through it. There we go.
Dave, yeah, I'm Brink Whiteside. This is the 72 for Bobby. On the front stretch. We've got Harry, Robert Q. That's my dad, Buddy Parrott. All back in the day with the Wing 71. Yeah. So that's why I did all this.
Marcus,
I don't wingtip.
Isn't that what?
Dave Marcus is known for wearing wingtips.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, he may have. I wasn't looking for that. But.
Yeah, I know. I'm sorry.
No, it's good.
That's something people say, like every time I've seen him. I think twice. Both times he's had them on, but that's something Harry Gant said last week that he had his wingtips on. So.
Oh yes, that's right.
And a lot of the fans really enjoyed, seeing those cars, and it was really special for the group, because the group's been about 3 years now going, and we've been able to go to Rockingham, and we went to Darlington for a charity event, and then last year for the when the car store was there, we did some laps before that. So to be a part of the Throwback Weekend. NASCAR 75, I mean, it meant a lot to a lot of people, and it was just really special.
Mm-hmm. How many cars did the Stock Car Classics bring out, do you know?
We were only allowed to bring a certain amount. There was another group that had some cars as well.
Oh, okay.
I think they're HSR.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Very cool. I saw a lot of pictures and a lot of videos people were posting and talking about on Twitter, saying there were a couple people saying, "What year is it again?" They had videos of the old cars riding around. I mean, you'd see a Richard Petty car from the 70s, or I'm trying to think of which ones were out there. I liked the Bill Elliott. They had a Bill Elliott Coors Light car that looked like the one he won his championship in,
the one
riding around there.
Yeah, it looked like the Ford Thunderbird from either 85 from like the 85 to about 87, 88 season. There's just a lot of history there.
Yeah, Darlington's one of the oldest tracks in NASCAR. I will say they did a really good job at honoring the 75th anniversary. I mean, it's obviously the Throwback Weekend, but they had all the living members of the top 75 class of NASCAR was able to be there, and that's pretty cool to have all those guys at one place, and those are those guys and they're the reason, like, we have the sport that we have today, right? It's those guys that have laid the foundation for what we do, kind of set their racing roots, right?
Yep, that's right.
I heard
pretty cool.
I heard that 30 of the 75 are there.
Yeah, that's probably pretty accurate. There may have been a couple of more. I know for me, it's pretty cool that two guys from my hometown are on the 75, Harry Gant and Rex White, which is really cool coming from a small town like Taylorsville. That means a lot as well. I think Rex was actually able to be up there, so that was pretty cool too.
Yeah, going around the garage and towards pit road and all that, you run into former drivers. Like you said, you saw Kyle Petty, right?
Yeah.
And I saw Kurt Busch down there, ran to Jeff Gordon and Rick Hendrick, which. Man, I was like, wow, that's right. They're right there doing an interview on Fox right in front of me. And then when we were in the media center, they had the post race interview. So it was really cool to say congrats and say hi to them in person. It was the 100th win for the number 24 car on Sunday.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Now, I will say there was another legend there, I believe. He was there. I saw he posted a picture. And I don't know if he's watching right now or what, but I didn't get a chance to see him. But I believe Scott Trevison himself was there at the Darlington Raceway. He at least posted some pictures of Sterling Marlin, so I think he was down there.
Your man.
I didn't even see
but
him.
I thought, man, if I would have known, I would have found him.
Scott,
and
why
said,
didn't
hey.
you come say hi to us? Come on. What's going on here?
Yeah,
He
but,
was busy. He was a busy boy.
Oh, yeah. And it was cool to see Sterling get to be there
Sterling
as well.
was there, yeah.
Yeah,
them people in the stands went crazy when they introduced Sterling. They love Sterling.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, there was a lot of noise for Kelly Yarborough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so I've got some pictures and I'm trying to get loaded up here, but I'm gonna have to.
And while you're loading, you want me to say hey to the people that are tuned in?
Definitely, yeah.
So Dickie Dennis is tuned in. Danny Martin, Leland Johnson, Joe Cephas, all have said something to us today.
Hey there, hope y'all were doing great and had a wonderful day and a great weekend as well. And tell us what was your favorite part of the race, or also another good question I guess would be, what is your favorite race to watch on television.
There you go. Yeah, send them our way. Send us your race day thoughts there.
Yeah.
Well, I guess now we could talk a little bit about the race while we have the chance.
Yeah.
I thought that the first stages were dominated by Truex Jr. He was up front and basically the entire time. I think he led like 145 of the 293 laps on Sunday.
Yeah, he led a lot.
Bubba Wallace was strong early on, and then we saw Chastain and Suarez Trackhouse Racing up in the top 10 for the first stage. I thought that it was pretty calm racing for the first two stages, and then once it got to stage 3, it got a little chaotic. It got guys were battling really hard for positions, and obviously at Darlington, your car will go up the track. You know, it slides up the track, and there's not much room up there. And we saw multiple incidents where guys went too high, pushed guys too high, and they end up turning themselves. So, well, from your standpoint, you were in turn 1 when this happened. I was in turn 4. With the Truex Jr. and Logano where he appeared to go up in front of him, and the Chastain and Larson one, what was your viewpoint of it?
Okay, well, let's go back a little bit because this all started. So, Martin Truex Jr., like you said, he dominated stage number 1, and it was cool because he was pitted in pit box number 1, so he was right below us. So anytime he pulled in, you could really see with your own eyes the advantage that you have having that first pit box to just pull right out of your box and then hit the line. And he beat everybody on pit road as long as he had the lead, and his pit crew did a great job.
Yes.
I don't think he ever lost a position on pit road yesterday. I think he only gained positions after he fell back. But he dominated stage 1. The end of stage 2 is when he got into, I guess it was it Chastain? I guess he got into Chastain there at the end.
Yeah, he went up into him and spun out.
Yep, he. Well, really, it looked like, almost like something Ross would do at the end of a stage. But Ross ended up having more damage than he did. Truex spun, lost some positions, but it didn't really affect either one of their cars. But Chastain was able to come around and pick up the stage win. And then, everything's kind of fine. I thought we might see a little more out of them later on, but it didn't really play into effect. Coming back on the restart, things were pretty calm. Chastain was solidly up front for a while there, and then I believe there was there might have been an incident on the backstretch, brought the caution out, and then it led a series of wrecks.
Yeah.
I believe we had the big one, which happened sort of in the back of the pack prior to this wreck that you were talking about, which caused the restart in which Logano and Truex got into it. Now, Truex was on the bottom and Logano was up high. It just looked like Truex climbed up the racetrack and unintentionally and got into Logano. All while this is happening, the entire front 2 or 3 rows is door to door, bumping and banging up there. So I thought that had something to do with it, but it didn't. So these two got collected together, and that's what brought it out. But you want to blame Truex, but it just seemed like he got loose unintentionally, and everybody checked up, and you have the accordion effect, which is a famous incident in motorsports. I mean, it causes a lot of accidents, guys checking up, and it's just tough at a place like Darlington. When you have no room, it's hard to avoid something like that. So,
speaking of that, what does Dickie say on that?
Dickie says, my personal favorite part of the race was when Kyle Larson was pushing Ross sideways.
Yeah.
And Joe Cephas says, I agree with that.
Now, that was later on. So fast forward to that. So Kyle Larson is sort of he's been fast. I think he gained speed throughout the day. He seemed like he was really good on the long run. There towards the end of the last long green flag run that we had, Larson was in the lead. On the restart where Larson was leading, he restarted on the bottom.
Yeah.
And this is probably with 30 to go or something.
So less than that, yeah.
Yeah, towards the end of the race. Larson's on the bottom, Chastain's on the top, and Larson is notorious. And I hate to. Larson is a pretty calm guy, right? You watch Kyle Larson, and he's not he's not a guy that is, he don't really badmouth a lot of people. He just kind of stays and really keeps to himself and races pretty respectfully. But the more that his career with a fast successful car at Hendrick goes on, it seems like he's really bad to run guys up the track off of the corner. And we saw it. We've seen it several times. I mean, it happened to I think it happened last year maybe to Denny Hamlin at Kansas, happened in the Bubba Wallace incident at Las Vegas last year. So, I mean, he's notorious for it. So he runs Chastain up the track. Chastain gets into the wall. Now, this is when the wreck happened behind him.
Yeah.
So that didn't really cause anything. But fast forward to the next restart, which people are really hitting Chastain hard about, is whenever Chastain's now on the bottom. Well, he returns the favor to Kyle Larson, who's running the top, runs him high. Well, Chastain got loose, ended up wrecking both of them, and that's when Kyle Larson hit the gas and pushed him halfway off the turn and into the back straightaway due to frustrations, obviously. But it's, to me, that's just hard racing. But Larson did it to him, Chastain did it back, and it took him out of contention. So that's tough. I want to ask you guys what your thoughts are on how the tower lined the cars back up onto the racetrack, because I know a lot of people were aggravated that Chase Elliott and Kevin Harvick, who were involved in the wreck, were able to keep their positions because, let's see here. Before the Larson and Chastain incident, I need to watch a replay, really, to get my mind straight on it. But there was an incident that guys were spinning out, and they threw the caution out fairly quick. Like, obviously, there's a caution, they throw it out. Then Chase Elliott and Kevin Harvick have nowhere to go. They get collected up in the incident. But the caution was already out, so they're able to keep their track position. Bubba Wallace was really frustrated about this after the race. So what do you guys think about that situation?
Yeah.
I don't.
You don't?
I was in turn 4, so I didn't have a great view of it. But I know obviously Hamlin and Bubba Wallace weren't too happy about it. I was thinking that Harvick had a great chance at getting his first win in a while, and it would have been so cool. But then again, his car is damaged. He wasn't going to catch Byron. But regardless, I think that they're definitely they do have a point. The people that disagree with the call do have a point. That's all I'll say.
Yeah, I mean, I understand that side of it. But the caution was out, and then they got collected, from what I understand. So if that's the case, then I don't see a problem with it. And for Bubba to come off of the track with a top 5 finish and just really beat himself up and then beat the tower up and like I understand your frustration. I get it. You just I mean, Bubba Wallace led some laps yesterday and ran up front. But I just
wonder if he'll get fined for saying BS a couple of times.
Yeah, I mean, he's talking to Claire B. Lang and has some profanity in there. But I just I don't know. I think Bubba gets a top 5 finish. I don't think he needs to beat himself up. I mean, I don't see a problem with a top 5 finish. I mean, I know you understand what could have been. I just don't think that he needs to beat himself up like that.
Yeah, like he finished, he's in the last 12 races, or the last 6 races, he's finished in the top 5, finished in the top 5, 6 of the last 5, I think. Pretty strong.
All right. Well, hey there, Bill Blair.
Howdy.
How are you doing, sir?
Great. Just coming from the shop working on that liquor car, man. I got to take a load into Virginia tomorrow.
All right. You got to take a load of liquor to Virginia?
No, I'm gonna load up and take about 125 gallons to North Wilkesboro Saturday.
All right. You do remember we are on the radio right now, and this is live.
I didn't think he's on there now, huh?
Yes.
I'm just kidding.
Yeah,
that's good. If you're bringing it to Wilkesboro, that's the moonshine capital of racing, probably.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the original capital of the world or the United States, I guess, or moonshine's over Statesville.
Yeah.
That's right. The prohibition area. It really was. That's where the railroads went east, west, north, south. And a lot of whiskey made over during that period of time.
That's right. We're sitting in it right in here, right in town in States. Well, we were actually talking about that Sunday night. That's another story. Anyway, So, Bill Blair, you got any stories about Darlington?
Well, I'll tell you this. I went to the very first race at Darlington, and I can focus on that. It's a little bit of history if you'd like to hear it.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Love
that'd
to
be
hear
great.
Well, let's get started. I may take 2 days to tell you what I know about Darlington, but we'll do a 30-minute deal here. Well, here's the deal. Harold Brazenton. Daddy knew Harold Brazenton. He came to High Point, North Carolina, raced at High Point Speedway in 1940. And that speedway was built right across from the dairy, the Blair Dairy, which was called Clover Hill Farms. And all those guys would come over there and get milk and sit around and talk all day long before the race. You know, they come from practice 2 or 3 days. So Harold knew my daddy fairly well. My daddy met Bob Flock. In fact, Bob Flock taught my daddy out one of them 39 Fords that my daddy had haul liquor, and he tore all the pieces up there. It wasn't his fault, but he got tore up anyway. But anyway, the next thing you know, this guy came from South Carolina up to see my daddy, and it was Harold Brazenton. And so Harold told my daddy what they were doing, and of course we'd already heard about it. And so my daddy asked him who was sanctioning that race. He'd heard that somebody in the Midwest was sanctioning the race, and Harold told him he was. And he said, well, as you know, France don't like his guys running somewhere else, you know, and he'll all take our points away or fine us. Why don't you maybe talk to Bill France? And so next thing you know, France was at Darlington, and the track was still under construction. And this would have been probably late 49 or early 50. Now, I can't remember everything. You got to remember, I was 9 years old that time. And so, anyway, next thing you know, we went to Darlington, and my brother-in-law, Frank Smith, he was a radio station manager and announcer at WMFR Radio, AM/FM. In fact, Frank Smith announced the very first 500. He was the track announcer. Well, anyway, the story up to then, as you know, the very first strictly stock race was in 1949, so this was new stuff back then, new cars. And at Charlotte, and here at Westmoreland's car ended up winning the race. My daddy led it for 145 laps. Bob Flock led it the first 5. My daddy led it the next 145, and then when he fell out, when Aaron pit stopped, I think that Hubert's car, driven by Glenn Dunaway, led the rest of the race, and then they disqualified him, went to court, and Bill France prevailed, and he was firmly disqualified because he broke the rule. But his argument was that they knew about those liquor sprays on the rear of the car during the week over there, and never said nothing to him about it. So anyway, I know France felt bad about that, but he wanted one of them Lincolns to win, so Jim Roper ended up winning it. Well, so we go to Darlington, and nobody knew it was going to be 500 miles, 3 abreast. A lot of cars had been entered from all over the country. Well, Sam Rice, who my daddy drove for, had a 49 Cadillac, and I believe it was a 49 or 50 Olds, but the Oldsmobile was new, and Fireball wanted to drive it. Fireball liked to drive the new stuff. My daddy said he didn't really care about it one way or the other. And some of them were getting backup drivers. They didn't know if they could go 500 miles. My daddy had a guy named Pat White from Archdale, North Carolina, down that area, to stand by just in case he gave out. And others did the same thing. Not many, but some of them, they were floating around there just in case they were needed. And it was going to be hot. Darlington was generally hot. And it was, at that period of time, they didn't run on Sunday there in South Carolina on kind of blue law. And they partied all night down there. I mean, that's where the parties really got started. I mean, people came from everywhere, and they weren't expecting a big crowd, and but they put up, I believe, a $25,000 purse. And I'm not sure, but it seemed to me like they had a lot more people than they thought he was going to have. They had 25, 26, 7,000, something like that. So the deal, as I remember, there was a building on down past the racetrack. I believe you head towards Florence. There was some kind of shed or old garage, probably several miles down the road, and you went down there, what they call the inspection station. And you had to do that before you qualified. And they qualified for a week or two down there. I don't know how many days, 8 or 10 days. I just don't remember. But I'm just telling you, I'm not reading this out of a daggone book or nothing. I'm just telling you, I was there and I saw what happened. I was with my daddy. And Sam didn't get the cars down there until several days after other people had already been there, so they qualified later on during the week. And my daddy was back in the 60s, him and they started about, 75 cars or so. And, there's a lot of them. I read this thing here on the piece of paper here Sheila gave me. I said I was 9 years old. I was 12 years old. She said I made a mistake. Daggone, that's the first one. But what can I say? I was 12 years old. Well, I know that we went down and we stayed in a house. They run out of motels. They didn't have many motels there. And people renting out their homes. We stayed in like a house had columns all the way around, a two-story house right there in town. It had the claw feet on their bathtubs, and the beds were feathered beds. And a couple boys come from High Point, and they got them a case of beer and some ice and put it in the bathtub, get the beer cold. And they went out to eat and come back, and their clothes were sitting out on the yard. It busted the tub, split it down the middle, and water run downstairs, so the people on the house threw them out. Yeah, I did that. But that's how the deal was, you know. But anyway, when they got there, they had to take the car down to this building, and they even pulled the camshafts out and checking all this stuff. And Hubert showed up with this Plymouth, and he lived in Burlington. Hubert grew up in Kernersville, North Carolina. That's about 10 miles from here. And then from the old dairy farm, it was about 5 miles. So my daddy knew Hubert. He was a bootlegger moonshiner. Hubert was. He fixed a lot of moonshine cars. He could make them run. Well, he showed up with that car, and that car was owned by, as I remember, Bill France and Alvin Hawkins. And they got it in Burlington, as I remember. Now, the thing about that car, when they showed up down there and they went to inspection, they put a seal on them. They drilled a hole in one of the intake bolts and one of the carburetor bolts. So if you couldn't get the intake off, take the carburetor off, you broke that seal, you had to come back and get it re-inspected. Well, Hubert took that car home with him to Burlington. Now, you could do that as long as you didn't break that seal. Now, Cotton Owens, there's several Plymouths down there. Cotton Owens showed up in Plymouth, and they wouldn't let him run it. He got real mad because it had a export-import kit on it. I guess that was for highway patrol use or law enforcement or maybe taxi cab. And the export-import kit was a truck carburetor and intake is all one piece. So, and I believe that let me think about this a minute. I believe that was the option. You could go to the dealer and probably order that thing. I'm pretty sure you could. Like I said, work from memory. Well, anyway, they wouldn't let Cotton run it. He got real mad. Said, well, you can go to the dealer and you can order it on the car and all that, but they still wouldn't let him run it. And the next thing you know, Hubert shows back up at that Plymouth. And nobody says anything. They check the seal on it, it's okay. Okay, so next thing happened, the cars, through the week come down there, and they begin to realize in practice and all that there's going to be a problem with tires. And so some of them will begin to gather up tires, borrow tires, buy rims, buy tires, and the most popular tire to use at that time was a Goodyear Double Eagle. And that's early 50s. The thing about a Goodyear Double Eagle, it had so much traction, they built up heat, and they blister and go to carcass off, But the race started, and I think the Plymouth was the slowest, because I remember maybe the slowest car in qualifying. And I think it was run about, in the low 70s, 71, 2 mile an hour, maybe 73, maybe 74, but it was slow. And the Oldsmobiles and the Cadillac, they was run about anywhere from 70, mid-70s up to about 80, 1 or 2 mile an hour. And I think that Goble Stolesby was on the pole. No, he's outside the pole. I don't know. Jimmy Thompson up front, Bob Flock was up front, and maybe that car that Turner had might have been up there. I don't know. But anyway, my daddy qualified on back there, and so did the Fireball. And the Plymouth was sort of in the back, too, but he qualified earlier in the week, so he got started before they did. Well, the race started, and it seems like about every 25 laps, you just go back in retrospect. I know Fireball, but Eddie, the rest of them would lap that Plymouth about every 25, 30 laps. I mean, they was running in the 80 mile hour bracket, and he was running about 10 mile an hour slower than they was. So you had that on mile 3/8 track. And so at the end of the race, they had during that race, it was hot and they was blistering tires. They was doing everything to hunt tires. The pits was no wall, for safety. You just pitted out in the lower part of the track there on the apron, and you was on your own. Cars were running hot, but mainly the issues were tires blowing and hitting the wall. Well, some of them tried to run on the bottom part of that track, short way around. In fact, when they qualified, there's a few of them, including my daddy, run on the bottom part of the track. They'd cut across the track and then back up, drift up, coming off the track, off the corner, back up to the top groove. And very few of them in that first race, as I remember, run up there in that, what's called, it's a saucer-shaped track in a way. It had that lip around the edge up there for one or two cars at most. Maybe in places you couldn't run to abreast back then. But they finally got into that. Some of them started running higher. But some of them did try to cut across the track, and the problem was that it wasn't long. You probably spin out sooner or later from all the debris, tire carcasses and stuff. They didn't clean the tracks back then like they do today. I know my daddy was put out racing 52 down there for a bumper boat off a wreck from an old 9-inch Ambassador turned over. But you had to put screen wire on the front of them to protect your radiator. But even on asphalt tracks. But so the race was run. It took a long time to run, it seemed like. And remember, I was 12 years old. And so at the end of the race, they had an argument, believe it or not. Sam Rice owned the two cars. And so Sam Rice, he's the guy, third owner in the original Martinsville. He had the equipment to build the track, Clay Earls, and Mr. Lawrence had the money and owned the land. And they won that. Sam's part of that the racetrack in a poker game, and Clay Earls, Bill France did, and Sam said they gained up on it, so he always had a problem with Bill France thereafter. So they argued again that race, and Sam said that they won it. Now, Fireball at that time, I don't know how old he would have been, but would have been, let's see, if he won in 49, his first race down at Hillsboro, he was in his 20s, so he's still in his 20s. Mid-20s, maybe a little less than that. Just got married. Well, he had a guy with him named Speedy Spears. Speedy Spears and Roy Jones are the two guys that started Fireball when he lived in Daytona. That's where Fireball started, with them two guys. And the rest is history. Speedy Spears had over 1,000 wins in his time. He's passed away about 3 years ago, but he's a great guy, 3 or 4 years ago. And Tiny Lund started with him, Leroy Yarborough, Sam Sumner. There's a lot of them. Dargan Watts knows him. I think met him too. But they all swore that that's impossible for that Plymouth to win that race. Okay. So you look at that deal, and I always thought that the reason that that car won was because of what happened at Charlotte. I think that they disqualified Hubert, and they really should not let that happen, because the guy that inspected the cars saw they had some angle iron welded on the frame down to the rear spring. The old Ford had cross springs on it, like buggy springs, I call them. And so it only let it settle down so far. Meaning when it went through the corner, that angle iron off the frame welded to it, it bottomed out on the frame, so it didn't have much body roll, as you know. And they raised Cain about that, but they crawled under the car, looked at the car, and they saw it. And I'm trying to think of that guy's name. It was Inspector Al Chrysler or something like that. Dargan would know that. But good God, after 70-some years, what do you think? But so, my daddy drove that car later on at Columbia, South Carolina, I guess, the next year. And Frank Mundy won it in Perry Smith's Plymouth. No, Studebaker. First race Studebaker won, I believe. And my daddy finished second in that Plymouth that won Darlington. And when after the race, they required you to pull ahead, and sometime it can, but you had to pull ahead so they can check the bore stroke and look at I think they might have looked at the cam, I don't know, but anyway, they did pull ahead on it, and the intake and carburetor all come off in one piece with a 6-cylinder Plymouth. So Hubert opened the trunk on 49 green Oldsmobile, they call them the torpedo backs. There's an Army blanket in the back there, and he took, put that in, it's the intake, carburetor, part of the exhaust manifold, and the cylinder head on one side of that trunk in that old torpedo Oldsmobile, torpedo back Olds, and covered it up with an Army blanket. And out from under the Army blanket on the other side was another cylinder head, carburetor, intake, and exhaust. And he laid that out on the ground for him to inspect. Now, so you add that up, but that was illegal, and it had an export-import kit on it, and that's what they wouldn't let Cotton Owens run. And Hubert took that thing back to Darlington, North Carolina, where he lived, and he worked for Hub Beeline or something like that down there, front-end shop. And he put all that stuff on that car, and they must have figured out how to, get by the seal and come back to Darlington with it. They never said a word about it. And that's how that deal worked. That car was illegal. And, it was illegal when it got down to Columbia. And see, Hubert used to come to High Point about once a week and stay with us, and him and Lottie, his wife, and they'd talk and they'd race a while and talk a while. And we did ask him how long that car had been like that, and he just laughed. Never said no, just laughed, bust out laugh. We always figured that car was illegal when it won that race down there. But that's a little bit of a story about Darlington, how it was officiated, how it was ran. Harold Brazelton, as you know, he liked racing. He'd been in a race before. He was familiar with AAA. And his first race, like I say, he was going to sanction it with a Midwestern group, and some of them told him, said, you need to talk to Bill France, and that's how France got involved. And I think that's how Hubert got involved. That car was a favor from Bill France, making up to him what happened over at the strictly stock race in 1949 at Charlotte, Charlotte racetrack over that 3/4 mile track. Or was it 5/8? I don't know. It might have been 3/4, but anyway, that's my story, and that's the way I remember it. And Hubert went, I guess, he built cars for my daddy later on, and it was a really good car guy, He could build motors, and back in those days, what they generally did was hone the blocks out and then narrow the pistons to get rid of friction. That's the main thing they did to increase the speed of the engine. Friction, I guess, used to be a big consumer of horsepower in the engines back in the day. From all they didn't have the oils like you got today, and the zinc and aluminum and all. Mm-hmm. And then, but Darlington has always been a hard race to win. My daddy went down there and I believe 51 with 6-cylinder Ford, and they'd been a good wouldn't run. And I guess that's Hudson's first win. Anything of importance was Darlington in 1951 with Herb Thomas, and then I guess 52 the Oldsmobile of Bonnie Phlox won it. Now that was another hot day, and that's the first time I ever known them to use nitrogen in their tires down there, and they were still using. I believe most of them still use electric wrenches. The 1950 race, I think they used 4-way lug wrenches. But anyway, in 52, I know Daddy had a car prepared by Hubert. Hubert was a pretty shy guy, He didn't say too much, but he knew what he was doing. And no car would run. And at the last of that race, my Daddy made a pit stop, and he come out running second. And I believe Bonnie was still leading. Bonnie had to come in and make a pit stop, which would put my Daddy in the lead. And he thought that he had a good chance to win the race. Well, he said the car started slowing up, going down the back stretch, and he looked down and it run red hot, is what he said it. And they come in the pits, and the water had done run out of the car, and they found a hole in the radiator. The pressure done forced most of it out, but it was steaming when he come in. And like I said, the pit's on the apron, and the car's whizzing by about 80, 85 mile an hour. And in 52, they run a little bit quicker than that. It was in the 90s. But you began to get racing tires back then. Pure made a tire blade or not for racing back then, but most of them run Firestone. And a few of them are still running, I believe, 54. They still run them Goodyear Double Eagles. They still doing the same thing. They'd get so hot they'd blister or throw the car off them. But anyway, what happened to him, what put him out of the race, run so hot, they had a wreck over there towards on the backstretch coming off the turn, and they didn't clean the track up entirely, and a bumper bolt come up from a car in front of him, and it lifted the bolt up in the air, and it went through the grill and the radiator, went into the radiator, and that put him out of the race. But one of them deal, that's just racing. We'll go on to the next one. But any question you'd like to ask about that, I'll try to answer. I was down there with, I always liked Dalton. Of course, I was there when Terry won. I guess what did he win? 1981, 2, something like that. Terry Labonte.
Yeah.
That's was building engines here in High Point called Blair Automotive. I had myself, Bill Carter, Corey, Bill doing the cylinder heads. He was from California, used to work for Airflow Research. And they had a couple of other boys working for me, Dexter Blakely and Bill Kimry. And that's what we did. We just had a shop there on Main Street in High Point and worked 7 days a week. I did. And I had a dog that helped me most of the time. His name was Flip. He's pretty good help.
Bill, I got I got a nickname for you now.
Okay.
You're the Paul Harvey of NASCAR.
Uh-oh.
And now
I don't know about that.
That's the rest of the story. Now you know the rest of the story.
It is in a way. Yes, it is in a way. Because a lot led up to Darlington. And by the way, Darlington also had the very first radio broadcast, live radio broadcast, I believe it was, which I believe he sold it, Harold sold it to NASCAR. It became MRN, I believe it was.
That's cool.
Man, I can't remember do you know what it was called before it was MRN? Because there was an old sign at North Wilkesboro. They've took it down now, but in the broadcast booth behind the MRN sign, they had one, and it was, I can't remember the name of it, but it was whatever was before MRN.
Well, I only remember that Harold announced the Sun 500 with whatever he had. And then I guess France bought it from him a year or two later. I guess he had it for a couple of years, but I don't know if he ever announced any other races through his broadcast. And, I guess what the shareholders, whatever, voted him out, but Bob Calvin in charge. And Harold was really a nice guy.
Hey, Bill, do you remember the Joe Weatherly Museum down there?
I do. I sure do.
I remember that as a kid. They had the Richard Petty Racing Simulator, and it was like a actual television sitting inside the race car. Yeah. I mean, it was ahead of its time.
Yeah.
The museum's still there, isn't it? And the museum's still there?
Yeah, but it's called something else.
I think
I guess it is.
It's called something else now, though.
They have the Darlington Raceway has a museum down there. I don't know if that's what the name is of it now, but I actually had a question for you, Bill. So the race, Kirsten was on the pole for the 1950 Southern 500. He ended up wrecking out, if I'm correct, but your father started back in 64th. He worked his way up, and Fireball Roberts started 67th. And with the huge field they had over 70 cars. I mean, I can only imagine, I'm sure it's quite the sight. But how quickly did it take for Johnny Mance to get up front? And I know the tires, as you mentioned, played a factor in that race. Could you share with us about how Mance got up there and was able to keep that lead?
Well, when he come in, I'm not sure he ever changed the tire. They was watching him, but my daddy and Fireball, so it didn't take them long to get up there. It became a deal of nutrition from the tire issues.
Yeah.
And I think that's what happened to Curtis. He blew the tire and turned it over, I believe.
Yeah.
It was Ames. It was a solid red Oldsmobile by Ames Motors out of Christiansburg, Virginia, somewhere up in Virginia. And, I think he blew the tire and turned it over. But I don't know what happened to Goble. Goble run pretty good. And, of course, that other boy on the road had Lincoln, he run pretty good. But the heavy cars would run. The Cadillac would outrun the olds that Fireball had, but it eat up all the tires. it probably weighed 500 pounds more than the Oldsmobile did, at least 200 or 300 pounds anyway. But I think that they had said that at the end of that race that Mance was 8 or 9 laps on second place, which was Fireball. And Fireball blew up, and him and Speedy Spears and Sam Rice got so mad they couldn't stand it. Wasn't no way that could happen. So we laughed him over 25 laps. And I'll tell you something else Sam Rice did. He was mad at Bill France the day he passed away. He went down there in 53, and him and Daddy had that Oldsmobile, his factory Oldsmobile. We call it factory because the Oldsmobile factory built it. And they got tires for the race. My daddy gave him the money to pay for the tires. Well, went over there from Firestone. So Sam didn't pay him. He put the money in his pocket. And Harry Payne went with him to get the tires mounted and bring them back. And so after the race was over, the radiator bracket or the side brackets on the radiator broke loose and got the fan, and the radiators won't put him out of the race. But anyway, Bill France called my daddy up 2 or 3 weeks after the race, said, Bill, said, you know, y'all didn't pay your tire bill down there at Darlington. But they said, the hell we didn't. I gave him money to pay for it. I think it's $300-something, $351, something like that, as I remember. And, well, he didn't pay. And he said, how about I send him a check and or pay him for those tires? And they said, I'm not going to pay for them twice. And that's Sam's part of this deal. He's to pay for that, and you need to talk to him. Well, my daddy said something to Sam about it. Sam just laughed, and there ain't no way. He said, he done stole more money from me than that. See, Sam always held it against him on that poker game up there that he claimed that Clay Oldsmobile ganged up on him and took his third interest in Martinsville Speedway. You know, there's another guy still living that remembers that. His name is David Perryman up yonder in Martinsville, Virginia. He knew all those guys. David's daddy was a little bit in the liquor business too. But he knew Bill France. He knew Clay Earls very, very well. See, Clay Earls won, he run a place up there called The Spot. It was at the bottom of the hill, and Sam Rice's brother run a place at the top of the hill called the Martin Eat Club. That's where all the gambling and the liquor deals went on in Martinsville on Highway 58 going north out of town. And that's where my daddy would go up and make liquor deals. And I guess, you know, as I used to go up there, and my daddy wouldn't let me go in. I'd stay out in the car and then for hours at a time waiting on him. I had to go everywhere he went. But I remember that place so well. I did go in one time, had to go in and use the bathroom, and it had murals on the wall, it had secret rooms everywhere. And always gambling. But you did not get in a poker game with Clay Earls. Nobody ever beat him. They came from Chicago all over the country trying to beat him, and then they never could. Never could beat him. He was good.
We've had NASCAR, the Cup Series has had over 120 races at Darlington Raceway, and you've seen a lot of those. So I was wondering, is there any particular race at Darlington that you would say was your favorite?
Well, the 1952 race was my favorite up until the time that the Oldsmobile run hot. It was I was really hoping he'd win that race. And, of course, the one at Terry won, which was an engine that we built. And but that was what Terry hadn't been on circuit very long. I think he came here in what was it, mid-70s. He replaced Skip Manning. But, no, I just enjoyed going to Darlington and watch all the festivities and enjoyed watching Bonnie Flock. Bonnie Flock was a showman. He judged some of the parades down there, the women in the bathing suit competition. He'd get goggle-eyed, you know, just cut up. But Bonnie was a showman. And, my golly, he was a showman. And I saw a lot of casualty down at Dalton. I saw Bobby Myers lose his life. I saw a lot of stuff down there happen over the years. And I always thought, no doubt, that David Pierce was one of the best ever hit that track. And see, another guy, don't stand him short in his period of time, was Bonnie Flock, could drive that track, too. Some of them early guys were surprised. You don't never hear much about them. Gober was good down there, Gober Stosley. Petty was good, Lee Petty. Richard, no doubt, was good. But I guess one of the best, proof of the pudding would be David Pearson. And believe it or not, Terry Labonte was a good driver at Darlington. When he got where he could come into his own, Terry could drive a track like Darlington. He could drive a flat track really good. And I enjoyed watching Terry run those tracks. He was a real fast, cautious driver, is the way I described Terry Labonte. He didn't take unnecessary chances. And, Pearson didn't do that either.
David Pearson he has the most wins and the most poles.
Yeah. David, he's just natural.
10 wins and 12 pole wins. Yeah, or 12 poles.
Wasn't Terry Labonte's first win at the 1980 Southern 500?
It might have been, yeah. I was there whenever it was. I said 81, 82, but I believe you're right, 1980.
Yeah, that was the race where Pearson, I think Earnhardt got together in 1 and 2, and then Labonte barely got Pearson at the line by like inches.
Well, in 1 and 2, they got together, and when they come down the straightaway, Terry was going to let up, and Darrell, the crew chief, told him, "Come on, don't let up." And he got back on the accelerator, and he passed Pearson. I guess come down straightaway. Pearson cut down on him a little bit, but he didn't cut him off, and Terry ducked a little and got by him. As I remember.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Good stuff there, Bill. Thanks for your stories.
Yeah, thank you.
Those are great.
Well, we're glad to be able to still talk about it. I wonder how many people still living that had been to Darlington back in the early days. Still,
and not that many, I don't think, that's went to the first one. Yeah, I figured you went.
Go up to Wilkesboro. How many people still living that was at the first race up there?
True.
I was there.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good. You're gonna. So, what is your schedule going to be now for the races?
Well, about Wilkesboro.
Yeah.
I guess we're planning to take the liquor car up there Saturday, and we're going to take the race car up there on Sunday. But I believe they've run out of places to park them. They may not do that. And I've not heard anything from them. I know they're still working on the deal, and I don't mean to bother them nothing, but there's not hardly a bare space up there that ain't been rented or leased.
Yeah,
it'll be an event. And they race up there, every day, starting today, something like that?
Tomorrow night, yep.
Well,
they'll skip Thursday because they got to take do a hauler swap. So the NASCAR haulers will come in and the late model guys will leave. But other than that, the remainder of the week, the track will be hot up there, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, boy. Well, I can't wait. It'll be a great event, really.
Yeah, for sure.
I'll tell you, I was up there this past Saturday, and it's beautiful. I mean, they still left some of the old signage just the way it was, and to bring it back to memory. But see, there's something about that track, the mystique of it. And all the moonshiners up there, I still are partial to all that. And you'd be surprised how many tracks in that period of time was built by liquor. I'd say Martinsville, Wilkesboro, Charlotte, New Charlotte Speedway, they call it back then, on Wilkes Boulevard, Tri-City Speedway, just on and on and on. And if it wasn't been for the liquor boys and moonshiners, I wonder what it'd be like today.
Mm-hmm.
It's good to have racing, no doubt, because AAA was already in the business, But we played a big part in it on moonshiners. And I say we, that's because my daddy was involved in it. I used to go I was like a shadow of him. He didn't take a step out the door, and I wasn't right behind him.
Yeah, that's cool. And we're going to have the Moonshiners and Racers reunion September 8th and 9th.
That's going to be the September the 9th up in Mount Airy. It's going to be a great event. People already called in, getting their reservations up there for the dinner, and also for the motels, the spaces, where to park the cars and stuff. Park the race cars up down Main Street. We've got a big tent with all the drivers and crewmen and so forth. Yep. And just be a parade out to the old racetrack that afternoon. There's a lot of stuff going on. We'll have a great time.
So when are you going to be up at the Southern Distilling?
It'll be June the 10th.
Okay, June 10th.
From 4 to 8. They're going to unleash Blair's last run.
Yeah. That's a cool bottle,
And
too.
that is a unique little thing. That Blair's last run, that came from the liquor car. That old liquor car, that's a pretty good little story if y'all like stories. J.T. Springer did have a 40 Ford, I believe it was standard coupe. In fact, they had several of them different colors. They didn't want to haul liquor on the same car all the time because it'd be too noticeable. And their favorite place to go is Martinsville because it's closer and they knew the road. You come in the High Point, it was in the country. My dad knew all them roads. He'd come through there with no lights on. And so this old 40 Ford was a dark blue one. And incidentally, this 40 Ford has been told to us is somewhere around Wilkesboro. Somebody first got that car, but we can't find it. I'd love to have it. Well, it was dark blue, and it had those spark plug wires like they're red, but you see the spark jump in them, you know, that they had bought. Took the pipe, the exhaust off of it. And at one time, they put a tube of 6 on the front, took the front bumper off, put a tube of 6 on it. They took the run boards off of it. I got pictures of it. And that's what they did back then. And they used shoe polish to put a number on it. And so there's a picture I got that Taylor Warren, now remember, Taylor Warren moved to High Point, and he can be second NASCAR photographer. And my daddy got him a job with Bill Blair back up here at Wilkesboro in 1948, I guess it was. That's 48, 9, somewhere along there. Well, he moved up towards north somewhere like Dover, Delaware, somewhere in that part of the country, moved down here, and the people owned the Alderman Studios introduced to my daddy. So he started going to race with us. But anyway, he made a picture of that old Ford come through the corner over yonder at Greensboro Fairgrounds, and I've had all these years. And during the week, they would go to Marsville and bring back liquor in that car, white liquor. They do it a couple, 3 times a week, and then they had a coach that hauled in it. They didn't use the same one all the time. They go up there and make the deal at what's called the Martin E. Club. So Sam and his brother, they were from up about Roanoke, Virginia, and they own that club. It was probably less than a half mile from the spot of Claire Earls. And nowadays, it's a church, believe it or not. Yeah, church. But so that car was over at Greensboro Fairgrounds, run the race over there, and Minnie Cross from Ridgeway, Virginia, up on the hill on Highway 58. He had a speakeasy. You could drive up, get out, knock on the door, and he looked who you was before he let you in. He'd sell you, liquor. And he kept the money behind the kitchens there in the sofa, him and his wife. Well, he showed up over at the Greensboro Fairground. He just had to have that car, so he come with the money, and he bought that car, that race car from him. And so his wife drove the car that rode in over there, and he drove that 40 Ford back to Ridgeway. Ridgeway is just a few miles south of the racetrack there. So, anyway, a little bit later on, a year or so later, 2 guys and a lady come through there and robbed him and murdered him. Made him get down on hands and knees, shot him in the back of the head, and took his money. I want to say, now this is from memory. They may have shot his wife too, but a guy over in Eagle, that's right outside of Reedsville, there's a place called Eagle Falls or something like that. Put up a reward. His name was Tyrone Mitchell. And so I forget how much money it was, but that woman that was with these 2 guys squealed on them to get that reward. So they convicted them and spent the rest of their lives in Louisiana State Penitentiary for murder and robbery. And that Ford, the race car that he had bought, stayed in the building over there on that old estate for years, and then it's finally sold. And the family told a friend of mine they thought it went to North Wilkesboro. So, I've been checking around people up there if they might know where it's at. It'd be something to find that old race car.
Okay.
Well, I definitely haven't heard that before. I mean, it's very interesting, to say the least.
Yeah, sorry, I had the phone was ringing. The other line was, I believe Stoney was calling in.
Oh, he is too?
Yeah, that was
Oh, someone's running down the street there.
Well, you hear that, Bill? It sound like you're 39 Ford going down the street here.
I heard that, yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Look at the comments real quick. There's a bunch that have been coming in through the last couple minutes. Josephus says, it was pretty exciting watching the Ricky Craven and Kurt Busch closest finish in NASCAR history. Man, that was a fantastic finish. James S. says, I believe David Pearson was never injured. Bad in all those years he raced. For those days, it's hard to believe. And one funny comment I see here, Josephus says, a Dickie Dennis fence climbing simulator. He would download the app. That is quite the invention.
Well, that's what Jim Dooley said. They need to make a Dickie Dennis fence climber simulator. Kids would love to simulate their idol.
That's
there
crazy.
You go. Hey, Bill. Well, thank you so much for calling and telling us those stories.
Yeah,
Those are
thank
great.
you.
We could talk for hours about that.
Well, thank y'all. It's just some of my memories, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. We love them. Love your memories. And
Thank y'all so much for letting me call and be a part of it. Thank you very kindly.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Bill.
And we love you too, Bill.
Hope to see you on Saturday or
Okay.
this weekend up there in
Bye-bye,
Wilkesboro.
Tracy.
Thank you, Bill.
All right.
Yes,
Bye.
ma'am. Thank you.
Bye now.
Have a good one.
Oh yeah, Bill Blair. He went his first race in 1940. Isn't that something? That's
Crazy.
And so he's full of history. That, like I said, Paul Harvey. Y'all know who Paul Harvey is, right? He used to be on the radio all the time, and he was the guy that said. And now you know the rest of the story. After he told the whole story about something that always tied into something that happened throughout history, and it was like the backstory that you never heard about, you never knew about. So anyway, you're talking about now it's the 75th anniversary. Well, I was there for the 50th anniversary. I was there for the 25th. I was
Good Lord.
I've been in racing for 50 years.
Well, the 25th, that would have been, what was it, 49, 59, 69? Would have been like 74, something like that.
I was wearing the 50th anniversary hat yesterday at the track, and a lot of people were like, "Hey, it's cool you wearing that."
Yeah.
Well, William Byron was sporting, and back at the 50th anniversary, Jeff Gordon drove the that paint scheme, the brown car with the stripes and the 50th anniversary logo. William Byron won the race yesterday in the 75th anniversary car, which was a throwback to Jeff Gordon's 50th. Now you got me wanting to say the 25th. Yeah, but it was his throwback to the 50th. So that was pretty cool too.
Yeah, I remember that season very well. That's what our fursuits had. Everybody on the pit crews had their the 50th anniversary logo on there. Yeah, so I still have mine, of course.
Yeah,
from back then. Back in the day, Sonny. But that's good stuff.
I was a boy.
Yeah.
Philip in the comments says, David, you should go to the Junior Motorsports Fan Fest. And he also says, Tracy, what shop is David working at now? We are coming down to the Junior Fan Fest. Need to get David to sign Dash again. I don't know.
Oh, he's got the 3 car that he had to get a new dash put in it.
Okay.
And 2 years ago at the Stocks for Tots, we had Matthew Dillner, and he and I went out there and we signed the dash on his car. His car's painted up just like Dale Earnhardt Senior's.
Nice.
The 3 and all that.
The Wrangler colors?
Yeah. No, the
Goodwrench.
Goodwrench, yeah.
Cool.
That one.
Monte Carlo?
Yeah, Monte Carlo. And speaking of Goodyear, whenever it's been the 125th anniversary for Goodyear tires.
Yeah.
1970, 71. Yeah.
70.
She was born in 70. I was born in 71. Yeah, so there you go.
Man.
Of course, those were great years.
Yeah.
Robert Yates Racing Engines is where I'm working now. Yes. It's formerly Robert Yates Racing, but now it's just the engine shop.
They they don't do much other than make winning engines that go into winning race cars there in
Whelen
Modifieds. It's pretty cool. It's got to be cool whenever you come into the shop and see that your cars are doing successfully, right? They're out there running.
It is, yeah. Smart Tour, Smart, and also ARCA, some of the ARCA stuff.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
How does that feel? Because, what it's like to, feel the success being at the track and coming off the wall and jacking the car, but when you're the guy building the engine in the shop, is that different, or is it motivation? Does it push you forward to the next week? Think, man, we got it done this week. Let's keep pushing.
I remember there being a time where I was disappointed that we didn't win the race over the weekend. Back when we had Carl Edwards and Matt Kenseth and Greg Biffle at one time, and then we rolled in. We had Logano and Keselowski. And just winning a bunch of races throughout the years. And then you come into work on Monday that we didn't win, and it was just like, man. But, there was times where some of the teams I worked for, whenever we didn't have that great of a run, it was always wanting to have a good run. And there's times where I built the engine and then jacked the car. That I think the very first time in a Cup Series that I was jacking the exact same car that I built the engine for was for Sterling in Atlanta. Because our head engine builder, whenever I got into work, he's like, engine ran good down there, Atlanta.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, yes.
I think you even had a driver at one point. Thank you for your for your engine.
Yeah. No, that's happened a few times. But yes.
Yeah.
Throughout the years and such. Yeah, we used to be Joe Nemechek's front row Joe. Those were some good times back in the day, building qualifiers and such.
Now, do you have a favorite Darlington moment?
Darlington was always tough for me. It seemed like every driver I was with, we'd get there on race day morning and get there and then go and have to move all the tires. So, all right, we would qualify. What they did was they would have everybody, you'd qualify, and then you'd have second round qualifying. And if you qualified in the last, I guess it was the lower 25, 20, whatever, you would have to go to pit on the backstretch.
Yeah.
And so that meant all the tires, everything, we had to haul them over from the front stretch to the back stretch. Yeah. So it just seemed like every year we went twice a year to Darlington, and each time, even whether it was Kyle Petty or Sterling Marlin or Nemechek, whoever, we would always qualify. It just seemed like we qualified bad. So those were some of my memories. But
so this is probably when the front stretch was still the one that goes right beside the highway, right?
It was, yeah.
So that was yeah, because now it's obviously backwards because they have more room on that side. But that would be tough. That's
swapped it around.
He got plenty exercise.
Oh yeah, definitely would. I learned that. See,
for sure.
The media center at Darlington is in turn 1. The press box is in the Earnhardt Towers, which is in turn 3. So if you're in the media center in the morning and you want to go watch the race in the press box, you got to hike all the way across the racetrack. So I can imagine. I mean, we're just walking, but I can imagine you guys hauling everything and trying to load up and set for the race.
Yeah,
but it was always pulling into that place and going in and seeing the like David Pearson, like seeing some parking spaces. What do you call it? Reserved parking spaces for different guys like David Pearson, and that was one of the main ones that stood out to me.
Yeah, absolutely.
The history of the place was always great. And then I went there as a child, like I said, going and doing the simulator and all. So, yeah, and a lot of times we'd just stop by there on the way back from the beach. Anyway, but yeah.
Yeah, it's really cool to go by there on the way. Down that way, there's Florence and there's Myrtle Beach. A lot of times when I was younger, when we went to Myrtle Beach, we would drive by Darlington, and I was like, oh, this is cool, so cool. I remember they did a little bit of construction on the track or something in like 2010, and we stopped by there and went to the museum for the first time, and I think they had in that museum, at the time, they had Darrell Waltrip's wrecked car from the 1990 Pepsi 400 at Daytona in there, and I was like, wow. I was just, stunned by all these cars, and, I'd never been to a race up until this Sunday at the track.
Yeah. Well, Darlington was my second Cup race that I ever got to see, so it was pretty cool. My first one was the All-Star race at Charlotte back when they ran that, but Darlington, man, it's one of those places. There's so much history there, and it means a lot to the sport, and so man, and it still puts on some good races. So that yesterday was a good race. It was cool to be a part of that, and congrats to William Byron and everybody on the win. It'll be interesting to see how all the drama that happened on the track carries over into Wilkesboro because it's an exhibition race. So.
All right, so I'm gonna show you some of these pictures. There's Scott went out down there, of course. And there's Doug Gates and Jeff Clark behind Scott. He was taking some selfies with him, and there's one with Sterling, with Jeff and Doug Gates and Jeff Clark.
I really wish I'd have known Scott was there.
Exactly the same, man. Like,
yeah.
I really wish I'd have known.
So the next one, let's see. There's Scott again, and there's Kyle. Let me switch this picture to. That's the same one. Okay, hold on. Just one. Okay, so there's Kyle and Scott, and there's Hut Strickland was down there too.
Oh, nice.
Did you get to see Hut?
I didn't see Hut. I don't think so.
Have you met Hut before?
I've never met him. He's one that I don't think I've met him.
Scott's met him because we took him over to his house before.
Yeah.
Okay, there's Scott again with Doug and Jeff Clark.
Now, speaking of Hut Strickland, Josh Berry in the Xfinity Series ran a throwback paint scheme to Hut Strickland, won Best in Show. for the race.
Mm-hmm. And there's the top. There's all the there. I'll do this. That way you can see it.
The 75.
Yeah. Yeah. So
The 30 of the 75.
All right. So yeah, there's the top. What did you say? 30 of them. I guess it was.
30 of them of the 75. If I'm correct.
Well, and there's a lot of them that have already passed away too. I mean, we've got a lot of drivers that are in there from. I mean, the early days of NASCAR, so a lot of those guys are unfortunately no longer with us. Mm-hmm. And then, those that are and still able, it was so cool to have them I mean, they did such a great job recognizing them. And I think with NASCAR, with the whole sport, we look every week, and me and my dad were talking about this on the way down there. Every week, it seems like we have all these Monday morning podcasters talk about everything we need to do to fix the sport, right? Mm-hmm. But we need to, if we're going to, changing things and adapting to changing times is fine, because we've done that since 1949. However, while we do that, we need to take a look back and remember what has brought us to where we are. And I think that's what we did yesterday, and I think they did it very well. So, while maybe we don't necessarily have to fix the sport every week, we can always look to make it better. But to do that, we got to look back. So I think it's important that we did that yesterday, and I think it's very cool.
Yeah.
It was a lady announcer on the radio. Do you remember Jeannie Lasco or something? Maybe I forgot what her name was. Anyway, she said whenever she was going down there in the winter circle, she said everybody down here is going absolutely ham for William Byron.
Oh yeah, that might have been Kim Coon.
Kim Coon, that's what it was probably. Did you hear that, there, Stoney?
Hello.
Hey, Stoney Ballard.
Hey, how you doing, brother?
Yeah, I'm doing good, man. How about yourself?
Doing good. Trying to get over this. There's a lot of stomach flu and viruses going around at high school right now.
Did you take your day off?
Yeah. Oh, no. I can't take a day off.
That's what I figured. What do they do? They'd have to shut the school down.
You're Stoney Ballard. What are they? Yeah, well, I mean, come on. Yeah. They can't do anything without you, man.
Hey, man, those tires, just like at the racetrack, those tires have to hit the track. It doesn't matter what you feel like.
Yeah.
That's true. Yes.
You got to figure out what those cars feel like.
There you go.
Man, I tell you what, I was always so paranoid. I was thinking, all right, what's going to happen if I have a stomach issue or something and I'm at the racetrack? You know what I mean? Like those times. But for 7 years, fortunately, I was good.
There you go.
Man.
Your nerves probably kept it up.
It was, I guess it was good. You had to do it, though. You couldn't miss.
You didn't have a choice.
No, you can't miss, because, those fans out there, they're paying for you to do what you need to do. So if you miss, okay, so like if, who's your favorite driver? Dale Earnhardt?
Mine?
Okay,
so.
Stop it.
Yeah, I'm using that. I'm using that as an example.
I know, I just kidding.
But when you have all those fans out there wanting to see Dale Earnhardt run, if they don't see him run that day when they paid hundreds of dollars and spent all the sports memorabilia and everything like that, and if they don't see him run, then what you take away from the fans?
True.
It's a business at the same time, but, at the same time, on the track is like, then it gets real.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I know one time I had a really bad ear infection, and my ear felt like it was going to explode whenever the airplane was taking off and whenever we were landing, but I just had to keep on trucking.
Oh, well, I know which airline you rode with, but...
Except for the time you passed out on the plane.
True, that was the Race Day Express.
Remember that?
The Race Day Express.
Yes, I do remember that, Tracy.
Scared me half to death.
Oh, yeah.
David passed out on the airplane.
I'm going to have to tell you about the time after we won Dover with Davey Allison, trying to get that little puddle jumper back to Charlotte. That's a whole different story, so I didn't want to change the subject. Okay.
No, you can
That's totally different.
Or you can tell us.
So, what are we talking about tonight?
Well, we're talking about yesterday's race and talking a little bit about Wilkesboro. Did you watch the race yesterday, Stoney?
Oh, yeah, that was so freaking awesome.
Oh, yeah.
Because, that was a fast track.
Mm-hmm.
Whoever actually set that track back up to the way it used to be back in the 80s, 70s, in the 70s and 80s when we used to race it. Whoever set that track up and got that track prepped, that was freaking awesome. They were turning some, excuse my language, hellacious laps.
Yeah. Well, I think that's got a lot to do with the new package that they're running, at these intermediate tracks this year as well. It really fit well with Darlington. Mm-hmm. Other than the passing,
Bryson,
I
definitely agree with you because, their steering, their the handling, and the tire wear, everything was coming into play.
Yeah.
And it was like, it was almost reminding me of, when you remember when Hoosier Tire got into the prospect?
I don't, but I've read about it.
Yes.
Yeah, and when Goodyear and Hoosier started going through their stuff, Hoosier was sticking onto it so tight. Mm-hmm. It reminded me of that tire compound with the horsepower that they had.
Yep.
And I was like, I was sitting there loving it. Yep. I mean, I'm like, okay, that right there brought back to me that we're getting back to racing now.
Yeah.
NASCAR has finally figured it out. And we're getting back into racing. A lot of the drivers, you got some plus, some minus, but I think everybody's starting to enjoy it, and they're starting to enjoy the ride again.
Yeah. Now, Stoney, you mentioned horsepower, so now I got to ask you. Yesterday, it didn't. We had great racing. Don't get me wrong, but I felt like there could have been more passing. I felt like it was kind of hard for guys to generate runs. I feel like they would carry some speed going into the corner, but they could never close off on a pass, and I think they really had to work hard at it. So what do you think about a big argument happening within the racing, the NASCAR world right now is giving more horsepower back to back into the engines and to the driver for them to use. What do you think about that? You think they need more horsepower, or you think it's good where it's at?
No, I wholeheartedly think horsepower. There's no replacement for displacement.
Yeah.
I mean, you cannot argue with that. I can care less. You can always detune a car, but you can never add more to it. Okay, so say with your what you're talking about right now. Okay, well, you can change your stagger up, you can change the tire pressure up, you can change the rear end gearing and everything like that. But if you come in there with 1,000 horsepower, so to speak, NASCAR detunes you to 900, and then you can never get back up to that point. But if you start off with 900, you can never get back to 1,000 horsepower. So you can always detune, but you can never get back to the expectation that you were wanting to do.
Yeah, I'm just saying it as of like the regulation of like they can't use as much horsepower as what they could a couple of years ago due to the rules, because they want to save more money on building the engines and that sort of thing. But they say that the costs are relatively similar, so a lot of the drivers are asking for NASCAR to allow them to put more horsepower into the engines, specifically from the engine builders themselves, and just throwing a little more horsepower back into the package.
Exactly, that's Bryson. That's a great point to actually argue, because if it's cheaper to build the horsepower into the engines than it is to make the suspension work where the horsepower can't achieve it. So you're looking at suspension parts, you're looking at tires, you're looking at springs, coilovers, shocks, everything else, your rollover, trying to match just that 10 horsepower engine if you just let somebody open up a throttle a little bit.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
It does, and I think that's something that it's honestly confusing as a race fan and somebody looking into it, why NASCAR isn't – if the bill pretty much stays relatively the same, why are they not allowing them to put a little more horsepower in there? I think that's going to generate the passing. I mean, these cars are already flying around there, don't get me wrong, but it's add a little bit of allow them to make runs a little better and give them a little more horsepower, get them a little bit on edge, and I think that makes the product just that much better.
Yeah.
No, thank you for saying that, because you know what tire roll off is when you're coming over there and you got somebody hitting right up against you, and you get that tire roll off. But if you get that more, you've already got all the bite into your suspension. But if you had that extra piece of horsepower, you can launch across him, just like the Roadrunner and the Coyote,
Yeah.
You can sit there, just pull up in front of him, and then you can sit in the dog leg him, cut up inside of him, and take him on the inside. That's the way racing used to be.
Yep.
Give them a little bit more, Give a little bit more love to the racing of the sport.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think I don't know. I hear Denny Hamlin's podcast is really good because you got a smart driver giving a perspective, and he talks about that all the time about how just drivers as a whole want more horsepower. So I think that would definitely be really cool. Now we're moving into North Wilkesboro next week. What do you think about that? You got any North Wilkesboro memories?
Oh yeah, well we got a lot of North Wilkesboro memories of being rained out.
Oh yeah.
But I remember me and my little sister, we were actually on the cover of the next year after that. That was back in 1973. We were sitting up under the big tires that they had up there at North Wilkesboro, because they didn't have the wall up and stuff at the time.
Right.
So it started raining, so me and Lisa were sitting up under the tires and stuff like that, and there was a flood of water coming through us. So I think we were on the cover of that. But North Wilkesboro, I'll never forget, man, there's so many good stories at North Wilkesboro. With Junior Johnson, Waddell Wilson, I mean, geez.
Petty and Allison that one year?
Huh?
Petty and Allison that one year in the 70s, I think?
Yeah, it was in the early 70s.
That was a good battle.
Yeah, and let me think. I'm trying to think of some other things. I was thinking of Darlington for her in a little bit.
Well, tell us something about Darlington if you got any.
No, I always remember coming in the back of the track, when we was doing the haulers and everything in there. You had to pass over the little creek, and it was just like it reminded me of Nashville back in the day.
Oh yeah.
And man, we had some good times. Everybody, it was like once we got in there, everybody was like it's a picnic.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Allisons, everybody, it was like we came from all over parts of the country, and everybody would get like a banquet out, and we'd have, this is back when we had the station wagons and, stuff like that, and all the moms and stuff like that would make all the food, sandwiches. Everybody would just, walk down pit road, and you could have what you wanted, whether it was fried chicken or tuna fish sandwiches or whatever you wanted. And it was like, it was a smorgasbord of, hey, we're at this track right here. Everybody loved on each other. But once you got on the track, okay, well, I can see you're going sideways, right? Everybody wanted to make the race, and everybody was a family, and everybody helped each other out so we can put on a show for the fans.
Mm-hmm.
And it was such a great time to grow up. And I don't know if you got that picture that I sent you.
I was just thinking about that. Yes.
Yeah, for the original. That's pretty much when it started. So when the six-pack started. The six-pack started way before we even got involved, and we just happened to be at the right place at the right time to be called that.
Yeah.
And, there was so much love in NASCAR and the way we grew up that, there's no way I can explain it, and I couldn't put it into words. But, I've got a lifetime of memories. But, how we grew up and, how we achieved everything that we needed to do.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
And we just made our parents look like heroes. We were always in the way. but we made them look good.
Yeah. That's a good way to look at it. That's funny.
Yeah.
Yes.
Very good.
All right, buddy. Well, thank you for calling, Stoney.
Hope you feel better.
Hey.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, and I appreciate that. I still got to get up and go to school tomorrow. I got 220 students that I need to get past, and they're going to do it. But it's all this bug flu and stuff going around. And I appreciate you taking the time out of your day to actually talk to me. But we'll talk later, okay?
Yeah, buddy. That sounds good. It's good talking to you earlier too.
Thank you.
All right.
All right. Thanks,
Love
man.
you all.
Love
Y'all
too,
take
bro.
care.
Have a good one.
All right, buddy.
Bye, Stoney.
Bye.
Yeah, it was always good to talk to him. He called me earlier.
It's funny hearing him say, "Got to get up and go to school
Yeah.
instead of work."
Yeah.
I know. Whenever I asked him if he actually went, if he took the day off, I was thinking he didn't take a day off.
No.
No.
He's like you. He doesn't do it.
Keep going.
Funny comment. Philip says David's fault for building great motors. Then Jeff Dooley right underneath this. They need to allow more cheating. Oops, modifications like David used to do it is getting floating out.
Y'all just don't know. I actually know some of David's secrets.
Oh.
Oh
really
yeah,
now?
he's building secrets.
I know some of your secrets.
Man.
Yeah, I taught her a little bit.
Really?
Can't
Yeah.
teach her too much though, cause
Yeah. You don't want to get out, you know?
yeah. I mean, some things I keep to myself.
Yeah.
Oh, whatever.
Well, Robert Yates Racing has to be
Like I would
successful.
understand.
And, yeah, you can't have other people getting your ideas, you know?
You got that right.
Yeah.
Facts.
So Dickie had a question a few moments ago, and he's asking what happened with Noah and Ross last week.
Yeah.
You know, you posted about that. You saw it, the fight on pit road. Really didn't. I didn't think watching the race it was that big of an incident on track, but obviously Noah Gragson was. I guess he just wasn't happy with. It was just frustration builds up, and I guess that's what happens. But Dickie says it doesn't seem like they got any fines. He hasn't heard anything about it. And to be honest, I hadn't heard anything about it either. And I'm surprised that the media hasn't really used that to kind of, you know, promote excitement. You know, because usually when there's a fight, we don't stop talking about it for multiple weeks. So I'm a little surprised by that, but I don't think that they have been fined or anything like that. And I guess he's asking our opinion on it. My opinion on it is I think it's fine. I think we need a little bit of character in the sport. Heard Jeff Gordon talking a little bit in the media center before his press conference yesterday, and he, you know, because Ross obviously got involved with Kyle Larson last week, and it seems like every week Ross is getting involved with somebody. And Jeff says, well, it's good to have somebody like this that's aggressive, you know, and not scared to make the moves. He hates it at their expense, but you know, that's part of it. So you got Ross, who's aggressive on the track, and Noah, he's got a very a lot of people have compared him, I've heard, to Tim Richmond, because he's just puts himself out there and he likes to have a good time, and he doesn't really care what everybody thinks about him. He's an open book, right? But whenever he needs to address something, he goes and addresses it. So we got two very polarizing figures in the sport. So I think it's good that NASCAR didn't necessarily fine them. I don't, you know, a little scuffle on pit road never hurt anybody. So, well, I guess it did.
They should just let them. I think they should just let them go at it for a little bit.
Yeah.
Instead of jumping right in there and you know,
exactly.
it's like who were those guys that stopped them?
You ever watch hockey? You ever watch hockey, Ham?
Yeah, and they just stand there and let them go.
Yeah. Now there's a time when the referees need to step in.
I mean, if there's blood going everywhere.
Yeah.
You know.
Now that's when they get on the ground, the refs will step in, and then there's a penalty issued. But I mean, you know, they when the gloves are dropped, you know, they let them go at it for a minute. I mean, let them settle it out. You know,
exactly.
I think the drivers are too scared to voice their opinions, and that hurts the race fan.
Of course it does.
Yeah.
That's what happened years ago.
Yep.
They started censoring them, and then they would be like, then they just started being like, okay, well, I'm not gonna say anything. And
Right.
then
I got loose.
Yeah.
You know, when they wreck some, I got loose.
Yeah, exactly.
Dale Earnhardt. I didn't mean to. You know, Dale Earnhardt. These older drivers from you know, back in the heyday of NASCAR, right? These guys would just flat out tell you. I mean, you know, it's retaliation. He got into me, I got into him, and there's a result. But now it's I got loose.
Yeah. What did Dickie say there, Tracy? That last comment.
Thanks, David.
Well, you okay?
If the story be told, Chase Elliott instigated the whole thing.
Oh, really?
Well, I will say, like, with the situation that NASCAR has shown clips of the fight. Obviously, they haven't.
Yeah.
I'm sure they'll have it in future commercial promotions.
Oh, for sure.
But we heard in the media center, like, after the race, like, Hendrick wasn't happy at all. Like, he said he was talking about the instance Chastain's had with the Chevrolet drivers over the past year.
Yeah.
He said if they're gonna keep wrecking us, like, we'll wreck them back.
Well, and I love that from Rick Hendrick, because now we see the manufacturers being so key that we've got Chevys, Fords, and Toyotas, and it's especially when we go to a super speedway, you see it, it's very obvious. But the Chevrolet teams, while they're individual teams, they still have that Chevrolet in common. And so Chevrolet, as a manufacturer, wants all these teams to get along, because obviously they want their cars to do good.
Yeah.
But Rick Hendrick said, I don't care if because that was a question asked. I can't remember who asked it. But it may have been Bob Proctor's, not sure. But he asked, this is another Chevrolet driver, so do you cut him some slack? And Rick Hendrick said, I don't care if he drives a Chevrolet, I don't care what he drives. If he's beating up our drivers, I expect our drivers to give it right back. And I think
exactly,
and I think that's good. And I think, I think moving forward, I think it gives fans something to look forward to. Rick Hendrick said that Ross is making a lot of enemies. Cool. I mean, nothing wrong with that. A lot of people didn't like, Dale Earnhardt. A lot of people didn't like Rusty Wallace. There's been a lot of guys that had a lot of enemies in the sport, and it creates great racing, creates rivalries, and I don't see a problem with it. Let them have a little bit of personality on and off the racetrack.
Exactly.
Yeah, Dickie said it was Jamie Little earlier. Was the female?
Yeah,
the one that said that on the radio. I guess it was on the radio. I mean, that was
Jamie
on the
Little
radio.
would have been on TV.
That's what I was thinking.
Kim Kuhn would have been.
She was the one that interviewed Jeff and Hendrick on pit road.
They used to do the interview on TV in Victory Lane. Now they do it on the front stretch, and MRN does the Victory Lane thing, so they can kind of split it up there.
Oh,
but,
okay.
But Kim Kuhn, she was fighting the crowds running around yesterday.
Yeah, I saw her multiple times. Yeah.
Well, all right.
Pretty neat.
I think we should go ahead and wrap it up. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in, and we'll see you next week. We're going to have Darren Russell, who is a tuner for Penske forever, mostly with that 21 car. Whenever he was with the Wood Brothers, and then they merged into the Penske and started doing the cars there. So anyway, he's been around a long time. He's actually been on the show before. It's been a couple years. We were broadcasting live 15 foot in the air down the street for 7 days for the troops. So, this will be a little bit better to have him in the studio, and we'll be a little more structured and be able to talk to him and hear his story. So that'll be good.
Yeah,
and
well, thanks for letting us come hang out.
Yes, thank you.
Thanks for coming out.
Like and subscribe, people. Tune in. Make sure to like and subscribe.
Like and subscribe. And if, Kristen, you got your channel too, you want to tell everybody about that?
Yeah, my channel is the name Sewell. Almost at 1K for that, and then pictures from Darlington. Be looking for that. That's going to be on my Facebook, and should be in Steering Wheel Nation too, and a couple other places. So if you're interested in seeing those, just message us or message me, and we'll show those.
Yeah.
All right. Well, y'all have a great week, and we'll see y'all next week.
See y'all.
Thanks.
Broadcasting from the Randy Marion Studio, this is WAME and W225BD, Statesville.